Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sage Business Cloud Accounting topic webinar. My name is Joanne Barnard, and I'll be your panelist and host for the session. Guys, just a quick reminder, this session is recorded, but please remember that I'm actually a specialist for 50 Cloud Pastel Accounting. So while I do understand how Sage Business Cloud Accounting works, if you have certain questions that I can't answer, I will ask if I can get one of the specialists on that product to just look it up with me quick, and I will get an answer for you. So please just bear that in mind. It might take me a day or two sometimes just to get a full answer. Generally, I try immediately after the session, but there may be some questions that I cannot answer because I'm not yet a specialist on the program, but I do know how it works. That being said, guys, today what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about the banking tab and what banking means in Sage Business Cloud Accounting. So firstly, when we look at banking, these are our payments and receipts. This is our money coming in and going out. So this is where your customers pay you for those services and the items that they have bought from you, and where you pay your suppliers and your expenses. So firstly, you would need to add a bank account, and you would need to give that a name. So for example, FNB, or you can call it your business name, check account, whatever makes sense to you. So you can enter a name, and then guys, you can put it in a category. If you want to, you can create categories. For example, maybe you want business account, personal account, credit card, money account, all the different accounts that are out there. Then you've got your default method. So what normally comes in here? For example, maybe the payment method is EFT. When you're paying your suppliers and stuff, it's via an EFT. That's what you're using. So you can put the default here: cash, check, credit, EFT. Then guys, you've got your bank name, account number, branch name, description. You don't need to fill those in, but you can. Obviously, if you do fill these in and you have the account number here and everything, just bear that in mind. The thing is, you've probably put it on your invoices anyway for people to pay you, so the account number is out there, but you can also put it here, and you can put a little description. For example, it's a business account or the main business account, whereas another one might be a petty cash account. So you can fill in all of that information. If there's an opening balance, so that means when you put this into the system, what is the balance of that bank account at that point in time? So today, if I had to look at my bank account, I would put that balance in. That is going to be really important when I am doing a reconciliation, because if you leave it as 0, we now process for the rest of the month, and I come to recon. When you do a reconciliation, you put in the closing balance of your bank statements. So if you didn't put an opening balance and it was not 0, your bank recon is not going to balance. So it's very important that you have the correct opening balance, or else when you reconcile your work to make sure that everything's been put in correctly, it's not going to balance. So please put that in. You can put in your branch code, etc. And then guys, you only have access to activity and notes. Now, if we go to lists, we can, oh, sorry guys, in banking, not in accounts. If we look at our lists, it will give us our list of accounts here. And again, you can go in and it's going to give you those details. So it's going to say, you know, this is what the bank account name is. For example, the bank is an FNB, and you can then enter the other details. You can see that this is my balance at this point. It had an opening balance, and then I received the following transactions. And basically, your list of accounts is exactly that. It's your list of bank accounts. Likewise, your list of sorry guys, your list of categories would be whatever categories you have. So maybe you have money market accounts, maybe you have multiple credit card accounts. So you might want to put them in those specific accounts or in those categories. You can create those categories. Then guys, a quick entry rule is basically where you're going to specify that if you enter this, for example, payee or payer, so you can come here and you enter, for example, Joe. Then you set the description to and then you set the type. So I can go, this is a customer, and I can put the selection as, for example, that. So I know if I just enter Joe, Joe's already got a customer. This is going to be my quick entry rule. So I can just say Joe, and it will literally fill in all of the information as I've saved it. And you can put that in, so you can have quick entry rules. For example, you can have payment, thank you, and it will enter accordingly. So those are your quick entry rules, things that you do often, but that you're just going to have a little keyword for. And that will then enter specific. So this would be a supplier that you pay over and over and over again, or a customer that pays you and you know them very well. That's where you could set this up, because you can be, oh, I'm just going to put Joe because I know Joe really well, and then I can enter the payment without having to do everything else. My description's there, it's all good. Same with your suppliers. You can enter, for example, not that they're very popular anymore, but it's what came to mind. And again, guys, you can go, okay, this is my supplier, this is here. You can have one for VAT. And for example, you know that unfortunately, when you do your VAT report, it's always you having to pay SARS. So, no offense, guys, I think it's the majority of businesses. Otherwise, you're not doing very well. And you can then set that to VAT payment receipt. And you can set this up accordingly so that when you enter those keywords, that's what comes up. So for example, electricity, telephone, you can just enter telephone, it will go to your telephone account, and you can just put in, oh, it was 1,300 Rand this month. Cool, done. So that is what your quick entry rule is. This is different to a bank statement mapping. So with your banking, when we go to transactions, guys, you will see in the banking, and I'll come back to the mapping shortly, you can import your bank statements. And you can import your statements as either an OFX, a CSV, a standard bank CSV, a net cash CSV, or a historic CSV. Now, guys, a historic CSV means that you'll put it into the format, but generally, most banks have these two options. You can then import your transactions. And once you've imported your transactions, there is a difference between your quick entry rules and your bank statement rules. Now, obviously, guys, we're looking at lists where this came up. So normally it would list your quick entry rules. It would list your mapping rules. These are normally things that you set up when transacting, but you can also set them up from here. When you come in, you can see there's nothing and you can set it up. You can then say, check for duplicates based on date and amount, or date description and amount. Check for duplicates on new and review transactions. Now, guys, it's important that you don't process duplicates. This does unfortunately sometimes happen where you import the statement more than once. You want it to warn you and say to you, listen here, you have duplicates, and you can then check it and be like, oh, no, that's not a duplicate. Now, obviously, date and amount is probably not as precise as date description and amount, because you can have multiple things for 1,200 Rand. but that could be 4 different clients paying you 1,200 Rand. Now it's going to warn you every time, and you're like, yeah, but the description is different. That's where obviously saying date, description, and amount comes in, because it's going to make sure that it's an absolute duplicate. Payment from Joe. Okay, that's 4 times. Now, could I have paid you 4 times? Yes. But that'll be more of a red flag than just a date and an amount. And now you've got to check and go, but the descriptions are all different. So it is up to you how much you wanted to check. You can have it to do not check. Of course, that could lead your recon to being wrong and needing to delete transactions. And you can have it on only reviewed transactions or new and reviewed. Totally up to you. Obviously, this is as broad as you can make it and as specific as you can make it, and everything will be checked. You're checking everything here. Then, guys, the way that you need to do it is it's going to search your bank account statements, and it's going to search for something. But a lot of the times when you import your bank accounts, it'll give you numbers on the end of transactions, and those numbers are unique. So if you do import a bank statement and it gives you that number, remove that number. You're looking for something that'll appear on every single bank statement. You don't need the rest of it. So for example, bank fees or bank charges, you know, whatever is showing on your bank statement, that's what you can put there. And then you can be like, this is the account. It needs to, for example, go to bank charges. And you can then enter the information. The accounting display description means what you want to see. And you may want to see bank charges. But you know, on your statement, it says bank fees. And then you enter your information accordingly. And that's what's important. Again, for example, if I pay you, I always use my account number with you, or this is the reference that you've told me to use. So you would put in the reference or search for Joanne Barnard, because that's what I put. I put Joanne Barnard and the invoice number. You then know that searching for Joanne Barnard is going to map it correctly. So I can go, okay, this is actually a customer. It needs to go to X account. And I can enter, for example, my information and go payment from Joanne, or whatever it is that I need to put here. And guys, it will map that automatically. And when you're importing a bank statement, initially when you set it up, yes, this is going to take you time. But once you've got your mapping set out, every time you import that bank statement now, this is going to be auto-filled. You'll find the ones that aren't auto-filled, you'll quickly go put them where they need to go, and then you'll update your batch. So this just saves you time, which in essence, hopefully saves you money. But you need to set these up correctly. And the biggest mistake I see is where people go search for bank statements and they've actually imported a bank statement directly. And guys, unfortunately, I couldn't get a bank statement to import. I did ask some people, but it's all of our personal information. No one felt comfortable. And my dev team didn't come back to me with a dummy bank account, so I'm really sorry. But it'll come through with a description. And for example, it can say, you know, like FNB. Sorry, guys, make sure that you do select your bank account. But like here, guys, we've got all of this stuff here right now. You can see that there's nothing here that's, you know, something very unique. I could search for Loan National Bank. I could search for Alpha Cycling Suppliers. All of this I can search for. It's perfect. I can actually search for this. But for example, you might get, you know, a couple of numbers at the end that are unique. If you map that, and you had to actually come here, because you can also map while you're busy, which is awesome. So you can see less, you can see more, it'll show you what you're doing. But while we're here, and I was pretty sure that you can map from here. Why am I missing this? Sorry, guys. I'm working on one screen today. there, create rule. Sorry, it's just taking a while to come up. So guys, you can create the rule, and basically that's the rule that it's going to create. Now, I think that these have in fact been created, but you will click on create rule and it'll come up, and that's where you're going to do your mapping. But with that specific number there, it's never going to map correctly because it's too unique. So you need something that always shows on your bank statements. So it is unique to that transaction, but it's always there. So like bank fees 54379, the 54379 is not going to show every month, but the bank fees will. So you make it generic but specific. I know that sounds odd, but basically, you know, bank fees always shows, and bank fees always goes to my bank charges amount. So that's what you'll put there. So it's always on your statements. It's always that text. And the rest of the stuff on the bank statement doesn't matter. Now, guys, the reason that this reference has pulled through is because this is from a bank statement that has been pulled in here. And when you do bank manager, so when you import your bank statement, that's what it does. It'll do the day, the month, the year, and it'll put 001. And then it'll just keep going down depending on everything. And it'll go to 2 if there are 2 dates. So you have a transaction on the same day. And that's what it's going to import. So this would be if you are importing a statement, and then obviously you can come and choose to create these as a value or as a mapping. So you can add it as being mapped. So there the value is there VAT? Yes, no. Is it an account? Is it a customer? And then where's it coming from? What is the payee here? And then you're going to enter the information accordingly. And then once you've done that, you can create your rule if need be. So here, for example, guys, you can see it hasn't been mapped yet. And for example, I can that as, is there a bank somewhere here, transfer, because that's what that looks like. Let's put it there. So there the information is there VAT? Yes, no. So basically this is just you going through and checking all of your information. You know, was there VAT on this? Wasn't there VAT on this? Was it received? Was it paid? So this is a receipt. This is a payment. Are you spending money or are you receiving money? And then if I want to, once I've created it, you can see, guys, bank statement mapping rules. So if you haven't set the account or whatever, it will be grayed out as mine was. Only once you've entered the information, it's going to say, okay, what do you want to see? Now, again, guys, if you have some numbers, you remove those. So for example, Loan National Bank, this is loans. I could enter a description here. So it's optional. This is what you want to see, and you can just say save, and that will then save this. So if I then import my bank statements again, and it says Loan National Banks, it's going to automatically go, it goes to bank loans, done. And it says loans. I don't have to fill in anything here. I don't have to come and say whether it's an account, whether it's a customer. Based on this customer, who do I need to send it to? You can see that once I've done that, I can literally enter it here. And guys, the payee is optional. So for example, I don't need to fill it in, but I can. And it will fill it all in for me automatically the next time I actually import the statement, because it's just going to look for Alpha Cycling Supplies. And then it's going to pull them in, or Mountain View Bicycles. Is it a account, supplier, customer, VAT, etc.? So you can also create your bank mapping rules as you are processing. So as I said, the first time it takes time. Every time thereafter, all of those transactions that happen on a month-to-month basis or quarter-to-quarter, year-to-year, you can have those mapped so that you only have to enter like 3 or 4 different lines. So those are new transactions, guys. If we had to look at reviewed transactions, your reviewed transactions are transactions that, for example, you've come and you've saved changes. And these are normally transactions that you would have reviewed. So you again would select the bank account and you would need to check the actions. You would also need to display from certain periods. So I'm not sure when those transactions were for, can't remember. But we can refresh them. And guys, we can see that we then have these transactions that we can check, and we can then review them and tick them and say, okay, you know what? Cool, I'm happy. Those transactions are done, and we can save our changes. Now on new transactions, you can also check that it says reconciled. So guys, if you don't want to reconcile this on your new transactions, you want to save them, you can reconcile them afterwards. In general, when you do import a bank statement, it automatically reconciles them. So if you don't want that, you would need to unreconcile and then go and manually reconcile. It's assuming because it's a bank statement import, it is going to be exact. But obviously, guys, as I said, if you do have duplicates, that could be what throws it out. So you can see that we've got our bank, we can import our bank statement, we can process freely, but then we can also come and reconcile our information. So you can go to reviewed and look at them again and see if you're happy with them. But then here, again, guys, we can ensure that all our information is correct and that our transactions are correctly reviewed. This is where you're going to put your statement balance. As I said, guys, so here, this is where it's important to put that statement balance, the closing balance that you're looking at. And then you can also say that you would like to see the reconciled transactions. So you want to see everything, even the ones that you've reconciled. You can choose to take those away to only see the ones that you haven't reconciled, and then to check whether there's a difference. Now, guys, obviously, if there's a difference, this is where you need to check your recon that much more, because there's quite a big difference between those. Now, the thing is, if your balance and your statement balance are not the same, it's not going to reconcile. Something has happened somewhere, and you will need to check that. That's where obviously checking the reconciled transactions might be important. You might need to uncheck everything, recheck everything, make sure you don't have duplicates. But that's where you're going to do this to try to make sure, is everything balancing once I check everything. So guys, you can check from a certain date up to a specific date. The closing balance, though, is the closing balance on your statements at the end date. So whatever the last date is, if you're doing the 1st of August to the 31st of August, what is your statement date on the 31st of August? Your closing balance, not your opening balance, but your closing balance. And that's what you're going to put in there. It's very important that you do have the correct statement balance here, because obviously that can throw you out. But as I said, sorry guys, at the same time, it's also incredibly important that you make sure that your opening balance was always correct. Because if you had a value in the opening balance, but you had it as 0, you will always have a difference because you're using your bank statement balance when you do this. What you're hoping for is to see the following. So you're hoping to tick everything, make sure everything is selected, no differences, and basically you can then save it. That means that everything is 100%. So guys, as I said, if we look at our bank, you can either import or alternatively, you can enter transactions. So you can come in and we can actually enter our transactions as we need to. This can also be a manual process. For example, electricity. This is an account. It's going to go to, and hopefully I have, electricity and water. My reference is, for example, INB or July 2022, because that's what I'm paying there. Does it have that? Yes, it does. How much was it? It was 1,348 rand for the month. And that's it, guys. So either you can enter manually or you can import, or guys, you could set up bank feeds. However, bank feeds will be a completely separate session. So guys, I'm not going over bank feeds today because unfortunately, this in itself is very time consuming. We need to show you how the bank feeds work, and I need to try to see if I can get bank feeds from all of the banks that we support. Because how one feed works is not necessarily how the other feed works, and we need to make sure everything is working together. So I will do this at some point, just not today. You can, however, if you want, set up your bank feeds. And what bank feeds are is where basically they take the information from your bank and they put it into your bank account on Sage Business Cloud Accounting, depending on your setup. Now, guys, obviously you'd need to accept the terms and conditions, and then we get to where it will let you continue, and mine will not at this point in time. This is a demo company, but basically then you're going to go set up your bank. You have to put in your details of your bank, and from there, basically it scrapes your bank statements and it puts everything into Sage Business Cloud Accounting. Guys, no one has access to any of your information at all. So if you're putting in your username and your password, that information is not kept by Yodlee, it's not kept by us. We have no access to any of that information at all, ever. So please bear that in mind. Everything is encrypted, and that part of it is not saved at all. All that is saved is that you did link a bank account to bank feeds, and what we can see is whether it's active or whether it's not active. So I have a utility. If you had to get hold of me and go, my bank feeds aren't working, I will ask you for the email address you signed up with, and based on that email address, I can see which bank accounts you've linked. I can see whether it's active or not, and I can see when it last did the statement scrape to pull it into the system. I can then give you advice on that and say, either look, there's a problem, I need someone to investigate this, Yodlee themselves and look into it, or the banking cloud team look into it. Sorry guys, 50 still uses Yodlee. I think you guys only use the banking cloud. That team will look into it and they will talk to the different banks and try to see if there's a problem on our side where we're not scraping properly. Or I will tell you, you know what, I see there's a problem with the authentication. So guys, when we talk about authentication, and these are just very quick little tips, because I said I wouldn't do bank feeds in detail, but guys, something to note is that if you go into your internet banking and there's a pop-up or there's a message or there's anything where it's asking you, hey, here's a notification, I just want to tell you about this thing, all of that can stop your bank feeds from working because it's something you need to click off of. It might also ask you, hey, you need to re-authenticate yourself or something like that. So if your bank feeds aren't working, the very first thing you need to do is go into your internet banking and make sure there's no notifications, there are no little pop-ups happening. your bank isn't asking you to verify yourself or validate yourself, because all of those things stop bank feeds from working. If all of those things are in order and your bank feeds still aren't working, by all means, reach out to the Sage Business Cloud Accounting support team or Sage 50 support team. And guys, we will check our system. And as I said, we can't see your user login details. All it will tell us is a login failed or authentication required. We can't see what those details are, in which case we'll tell you, you need to delete the bank feeds and reset them up. Something's gone wrong, but your details are not saved anywhere on any system I have access to, on any system Banking Cloud has access to, or Yardley. None of us have access to any of that information at all. We understand that it is very important to you, and none of us can get into your bank accounts. Just saying. As someone who does have access to the back end, I don't have access to that. Then guys, if we look at our different reports, I see that there might be a question. So guys, the question, and it is with bank feeds, is with regards to having to constantly authorize yourself. Guys, unfortunately, that may be something to do with the banks, so it's not from our side. So is there a way for it to just pull them in? My advice here would be to please reach out to Sage Business Cloud Accounting and see if this is an issue specifically with them. I'm not 100% sure if it is, but either you can reach out to them, or at the end of the session, I can reach out to them on your behalf and just ask them if there is anything. But if it's coming from the bank, I don't think there's anything we can do. The banks are getting a lot stricter because, unfortunately, fraudsters are getting a lot smarter. And at the end of this, I'll tell you a story about some fraud that someone tried to get me involved in, if you're interested. But guys, they're getting smarter, so the banks are getting more nervous, and they do ask you to validate yourself a lot more. And I know it's frustrating, but I don't know if there really is anything, but I can check for you. I will give you my email at the end of this, because you will need to email me if you want me to check on your behalf. Otherwise, if you're happy to email Sage Business Cloud Accounting support yourself, you're also welcome to do that, just to ask them. But I think it's more on the side of the banks, not on the side of us. I think it's a bank requirement, not an us requirement. And in that regard, then no, we can't change it. So guys, with your reports, again, you have your list. I think that we've gone over the list. Then you've got your bank and credit card transactions. So this is obviously you being able to see those. This could also be very important for reconciling. Like, you may need to compare your transaction report to your reconciliation, just to make sure that, like, you're seeing everything as well as your bank statement. And if your bank statement and your recon are balancing, then we need to see the transactions to try to figure out what's happening. And you can see that your date range you can look at is monthly, quarterly, yearly, month to date, quarter to date, year to date, life to date, custom to date, last month, last quarter, last year, custom dates and all. Totally up to you. Depending on the options that you select here, guys, depends on what it shows on the right-hand side, obviously. So if we're going monthly, it's going to ask you, okay, which month would you like to view? For example, if we go quarterly, it's going to ask about the quarter. If we go all, it's going to go, okay, everything it is. So that'll change depending on the option, and you may or may not be able to alter it. If we go monthly, and for example, go September, you can then select all of your banks. So guys, if you have multiple banks, you can go, I want this bank to, for example, a different bank. I want from X category to Y category. So you can either choose one, or you can choose a range, and then you can choose both active and inactive. So that's for your bank accounts. Do you want to see transactions on active and inactive bank accounts, or only your active bank accounts, only your inactive bank accounts, etc.? And then you can specify transaction type. So if you see that it's actually your receipts that seem to have a problem, you can then go and check, for example, just all your account receipts or just your your customer receipts, and go, okay, it's definitely between these two, and you can print that report out. You can check transfers in, transfers out. You can check by account payments, by supplier payment, by opening balance. As I said, guys, opening balance is really important. And then depending on what you select, obviously, depends on what the report will show you. Now, guys, as I said, I think that my dates are for like way past that. So I'm just actually going to say all here. Let's do refresh. And guys, if you don't select like in, out, like if you leave it as I did, and you saw that I did not select a transaction type, it's going to give me everything then. So if you want to see everything, the way to do that is you just don't select a transaction type. You literally say, yeah, okay, I want to see all of my transactions, because you may not know, is it an account receipt? Is it a customer receipt? Is it a payment? Is it a transfer? You may have no idea. Like if you do, awesome, but you may not. So you're going to be like, okay, I need to see everything. I don't want to print out 5 reports. You leave it as select transaction types, done. And it will then pull it through that way. So obviously, depending on your report filters, depends on what you're going to see. Then guys, we've also got our cash movement. Now your cash movement, again, is going to show you the movements of the money in and around your account. So again, you can select between a range of accounts, a range of categories. We can select the different options again, and then we can select whether we want to view, print, or email. And when we view the report, what it's going to do is it's going to show us that cash movement. So it's going to show us the money that we received, the money that was paid, and the balance brought forward. And it's going to give us an idea of our cash movement and our cash flow. So that's exactly what it is. It's a cash movement report. It's showing you your income versus your expense, as well as your brought forward value. So are we doing okay here? In this instance, yes, we have a positive balance. We're okay. You know, my cash flow looks good. So you use that for cash flow to know how the money is moving in your account. You can see good months and bad months depending. So that's what that report is used for. Well, there's actually a cash flow report, but cash movement, cash flow. Sorry, guys. Honestly, we only have the one report in pastel, so it's the same thing to me. I do apologize if there is a difference. I'm going to quickly view this because I kind of had them as the same thing, because 50 only has one. I do apologize about this, guys. Okay, so basically it just puts it in a different way. So it's showing you your inflows and your outflows, and then it's giving you the money in and out. So basically both reports are showing you money in, money out, and giving you a total of this is how it's happening. If anyone does know the difference between the two, please let me know, because not being an accountant, I really can't see it. It just looks like it's written in a different way. Apologies. Then guys, you have your bank feeds audit trail. Now your audit trail for your bank feeds, I don't have any set up, will literally show you what's happening with your bank feeds, when you last got the transactions, what transactions have come in, that type of thing. Apparently that can be very useful. As I said, unfortunately mine is not set up, and I will go through the bank feeds audit trail when I do bank feeds. Then guys, we've got special, and special is if you need to adjust that opening balance. So special on everything is always for the opening balance. So you see your bank recon isn't balancing, and you need to come and alter that because you've been able to establish it's because your opening balance was incorrect. You can then come and fix the opening balance here accordingly. You can put in the reason, for example, opening balance incorrect, and you can enter the new one and put in the date that it should have been entered at and save, and that will alter it accordingly. And guys, that is basically banking in a nutshell. Other than bank feeds, that is banking in a nutshell. Does anyone have any questions around that? Does anyone have any questions on how to process, questions around Bank Manager, how to add your mappings, the difference between quick entry rules and Bank Manager rules? Hopefully I made that quite clear. Please let me know, guys, but that is banking in a nutshell. And obviously banking goes hand in hand with customers and suppliers. So it's where you pay for your goods, it's where you receive the money for your goods, but it's also to do with your income and expense. So paying your electricity, paying your telephone accounts, paying for the bank fees. So this is basically your cash flow. This is where the money is actually, your assets are now reaping the rewards. You're seeing that money come in and you're seeing that money go out, and you need to see what your cash flow is looking like to have a healthy business. So banking is very important. Everything is very important and works hand in hand, but you need to make sure that obviously you're capturing those transactions correctly, or they're being imported correctly. And you can save yourself a lot of time and effort by either using bank feeds or using Bank Manager, manually importing your statements and then setting up those bank statement rules. So guys, does anyone have any questions around this? Any questions with regards to how something works? Yeah, the recording will be shared with you guys. You should get the recording probably at around 11 o'clock tomorrow. It normally takes about 24 hours before the video renders, because it actually renders through GoToWebinar and then it sends it through to you. Now guys, if it does not send it through to you, I'm going to give you my email address. If you look on the chat, you'll see my email address. It's joanne.barnard@sage.com. Guys, you're welcome to email me on that email address to request the recording if you need it, or previous recordings. I will do my best to reply to you as quickly as I possibly can. Sometimes it does take me a couple of days though. Guys, if I have not replied to you within 24 hours, please just send me a reminder. Sometimes, unfortunately, I do get a lot of emails. And as I said, I am one of the specialists for Sage 50 Cloud Pastel Accounting. So on top of running these webinars, I am the support for support. I'm third tier support for them. So I do data investigations. I do remote sessions where I have to log in to fix things for the agents. And I need to also run these webinars, create videos, create the knowledge base articles. So guys, at times, I might see your email and be like, cool, I'll reply to Jessica tomorrow, or I'll reply to Jessica as soon as I'm done with this. And I am human and I do forget. I luckily don't feel I do it too often. But guys, if in 24 hours you haven't had a response, please just, hey Joe, please remember me. Hey, sometimes on top of that, you may go into my junk mail, and guys, I'm very bad with checking my junk mail. So please just know that if you need the recording, that's fine. Guys, please do not use my email for support queries. The reason for that is, if you're asking for a recording, as frustrated as you may feel with me if I do take 24 hours to give it to you, it is just a recording. It's not your work that's being impacted. If you need support though, and I don't see your query, or I quickly click on it, but I'm helping someone else and I don't get to it, there's no record that you asked for help, firstly. And secondly, you're waiting on me to assist you. You need to go through the correct channels. So my email is not for support. You have to go through the correct channels, because it's to ensure you get the assistance you need when you need it. One, there'll be a record that you did ask for help. You either called in, you used the chat, or you phoned, or you emailed, and someone will respond to you ASAP. I am not always available to do that. I don't always do that timeously. In fact, guys, normally there's a couple of hours at the least that you have to wait for me. So I'm not the best person to get immediate help from. So please don't use my personal work email for that. It's not logged, and I don't want you to be disappointed. But if it's to do with the webinars, different story, guys, it's going to come to me anyway, and I will sort you out. That being said, guys, if you have any questions with regards to this webinar, again, I'm happy to get that info for you. If I don't know the answer, for example, is there a way to not have to validate myself every 5 seconds, which I understand the frustration in that. If you don't want to ask support, please pop that to me in an email. I'll check with the Sage Business Cloud accounting team. I know on Sage 50, if it asks you for validation, it's from the bank side, but we are still using Yodlee, guys. So maybe there is a difference. So I'm happy to find out for you. I also know that our guys don't deal with, I think, as hectic a validation as what maybe you're dealing with on Sage Business Cloud Accounting. So I do want to check, is that an SBCA issue, or is that from the banks themselves? It could be the banks, in which case, unfortunately not, but I'm happy to look into it. Otherwise, guys, any other questions that you have, any other information you require from me, please let me know. If not, guys, then that is it for this session. Our next session will be run in September, and it is going to be on the accounts tab. So we're going to be, that's going to be quite a long webinar, guys. We're going to be talking about grouping, how grouping works, how that's basically like sub accounts and how you can use it like sub accounts. So that's what we're going to be talking about in September. So we're going to be talking about all our GL accounts, and there is a lot of information to get through there. So if you are keen, please sign up. Guys, the way that you can sign up is you go to Sage City. You can also sign up off of the newsflash. You go to Sage Accounting. And guys, you can see that this is now, once again, at the top. You just click on it and then you click to sign up. You can also check what topics are here. And guys, again, if any of you have any specific topics that you would like me to run, we are starting to look at 2023. I know that we're only in August, but I need to start prepping the topic webinars for 2023 already. I need to have these up by no later than October. So guys, if you do have any specific topics, any specific things in the system that you want to know about, that you're curious about, please can you also email those topics through to me, and I can then add them to the list. We obviously started off with the easiest stuff and basic overviews of the system. This is now your chance to go, hey, I want to know this. For example, Joe, we really want to know how to set up bank feeds in depth. Cool, it's on my list, but if you want that, let me know. These webinars are for you guys, our clients. We want you to get the most out of the program, not what I think is cool to teach you. Sometimes that's nice because I know about features you might not, but sometimes there's stuff you guys want to know about. So please send me your suggestions, things that you'd like me to cover for 2023. Otherwise, guys, that is it for me on this session. If you don't have any questions, you're welcome to log out, and I will see you hopefully on the 20th of September, where we do our overview on accounts. Thanks so much, guys. Ciao, ciao.